Hi everybody and welcome to this, our second broadcast all about coffee from Cafe LA. And as you can tell, we're still not working. We're in the middle of the pandemic lockdown here in the UK at the moment. I had some comments about my hair in our broadcast 2 weeks ago. It's not got any better, guys, so thanks for your comments, and I've taken the feedback on board and got some appropriate headgear. And you might recall 2 weeks ago our video was about the espresso machine and how to brew the perfect espresso shot, which of course is the basis of all the drinks we produce for you at Cafe LA, whether it's at our coffee shop at Belvoir Castle or whether it's on board the van here at Van Henri. That video is still available on our YouTube channel. It's also available on the Cafe LA Facebook page. If you scroll down a bit, you'll find it. So here we are, and we're going to talk about steaming milk today. If you're watching this at 4 o'clock on the Sunday, Claire and I will be online at that time, so just ping us your questions or your comments and we'll do our best to answer them. And we'll answer them subsequently if you're watching this later on. Let's talk about steaming milk. So I've always found that steaming milk's a bit more of an art. You know, we talked about brewing the espresso shot. Now, if you follow the process very carefully and thoroughly with making espresso, you start with tremendous beans like we do. We get ours from 200 degrees in Nottingham. Then almost you can't go wrong, and you will consistently get good espresso. Steaming milk is more of an art form. It takes a tremendous amount of practice, but it's worth it, because if you combine beautifully steamed milk with a really good espresso shot, you've got something exquisite. It tastes incredible. You've still got that intense coffee flavour coming through in the taste of the coffee, but it's balanced with that lovely, warm, luxurious mouthfeel you get from well steamed milk. And there's like a natural sweetness to it as well. You know, some people come to our shop and they say, well, normally I'd ask for sugar, but I don't need it here because there's a natural sweetness to the coffee which really works. And people have been combining milk and coffee for 300 years, so there's something in it, isn't there? And talking of which, the most popular drink today in the UK coffee shop is the cafe latte. It has been for a couple of years. By the way, if you go on holiday to Italy, don't just order a latte. You'll get a glass of milk. That's what it translates as. You need to order a cafe latte, and then you'll get something you might recognise. Let's talk about the kind of milk we use in the cafe. We tend to use, as in fact we always use as a default, British whole milk. The fresher the better. Why? Because it steams beautifully and it really does give you that lovely creamy taste that you get from the fuller fat content. At the other end of the spectrum, the skim milk, we can certainly offer you that and make you a skinny latte or cappuccino from that. I've personally always found skim milk harder to steam, but it can be done. No problem at all with some practice. And if you prefer something non-dairy, at the shop and on the van, we offer soya milk. Alpro Soya Professional we use, and I'm not being paid to say this, but genuinely this stuff for oat milk is brilliant. Oatly Barista steams beautifully, tastes incredible as a cappuccino, and you can still do some latte art with it. Okay, let's talk about latte art, by which I mean the pretty patterns you sometimes see on the top of a cup of coffee, and that's made by pouring perfectly well steamed milk into your espresso shot in a certain way. Hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate that shortly. Is that a guarantee if you see latte art that you've got a good coffee? Absolutely not. Not necessarily. It does indicate though that the barista's taken some care over it. They know what they're doing, they've taken care, because to do latte art without steaming the milk well is almost impossible. Conversely, you could have a coffee that tastes tremendous with zero latte art in it, but it is an indication that the barista, you know, really cares, and it's a good thing for the barista to do. It looks tremendous. I think you'll agree. Okay, and broadly speaking for Cafe LA, we kind of categorise milk in two ways. We will steam either latte milk, as we call it, or cappuccino milk. The latte milk, guess what? We use it in cafe lattes. We also use it in mochas, in hot chocolates in fact, flat whites, cortados, and that's milk where there's less foam, less air has been injected and less volume. Versus cappuccino milk, which obviously we use in cappuccinos, a little bit more foam, but not a tremendous amount. I think the days where you will be glugging through mouthfuls of foam and air just to get a single taste of your coffee have long gone in most good coffee shops. And in fact for us, there's not a tremendous distinction between the two, but there is slightly more air and foam in a cappuccino. But that's a good point actually. There's no sort of published, like, agreed industry definitions of this is a cappuccino, this is a latte. It's up to each shop to decide what works for them. And we've decided what works for us, and that's what we stick to. And in fact, we train all of our baristas very carefully to be consistent, right? Because if you order a cappuccino and Jake's making it for you on Saturday, you want to know when you go in on Sunday to Cafe LA and Wendy's on the machine, you're going to get a cappuccino that's made in exactly the same way, tastes the same, looks the same, and is incredible. So consistency is everything. We have a published specification for our drinks, and we, as I say, we train our baristas very carefully with help from our roasters 200 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the process. I'm going to talk you through it first and then do it, because I'm a bloke, can't multitask. So here on the machine at either end we have a steam wand. They're both the same, just barista preferences as to which you'd favour. Jake's being left-handed tends to favour the left-hand steam wand. I'll tend to go to the right, but they both work in the same way. And what happens is the boiler's heating water, partly for the coffee, of course, but also for the steam for these steam wands. The steam comes through from the boiler at 100 degrees. You open these valves here and the steam comes through. And what you're doing then is you're submerging that wand into the milk that's poured into the jug there. You just submerge the tip a little bit, you put the steam on to full, and you'll just hear, as you inject air into the milk, this sort of noise. I'll try and demonstrate when I steam it. And that's, you don't want to be hearing great gulps of air going into the coffee, but just enough. So what you're doing is you're stretching the milk, you're expanding it. A little bit more for cappuccino than for latte, but that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to add some volume and some texture. The first half of the process, typically you're doing that. Once you've added enough, you've stretched the milk enough, you've added enough air, the rest of the process, you'll keep the milk swirling through the pressure of the steam and the movement, but you're heating it. And what we do is we heat our milk at the shop and on the van to about 65 degrees. And we can measure that through experience. You can feel through your fingertips when you're where you need to be. But also we've got these strip thermometers on the jugs, so you can see exactly when you're at 65 degrees, or dial thermometers on the bigger jugs. Like if you go much beyond 70, you're going to risk burning the milk, it's going to taste dreadful. Conversely, there are specialty coffee shops that will steam the milk to a lower temperature. They claim that makes the coffee delicious. I think they're right. The challenge with that though is you've almost got to drink your coffee in one gulp, otherwise it just goes too cold and you can't enjoy it. So we think our customers prefer a drink that can savour for a little longer. So we will steam to that sort of happy middle ground of 65 degrees for any milk that we do. So and let's just go through the process then. I'm going to brew you an espresso shot, and I'm going to see if we can make you a nice coffee. I won't talk too much about brewing the espresso itself because that was on the previous video, of course. But let's grind the coffee. Let's just purge the machine. There we go. Okay, so we'll tamp that. This being a semi-automatic machine, as you might remember from our previous video, we've got to time the shot. So I'll set that shot brewing, and while we do that, we'll pour the milk. To say, you want to start with a very cold and clean jug. This is, but if it wasn't, I'd be rinsing it out with cold water first. Pour the milk to just below the level of the spout. That's typically where we'll go. There we go. And the next thing you want to do is purge your steam wand. Just run some steam through it, like that. That just makes sure we've got no residual milk from the last coffee in there. It's good for the machine as well. There's our espresso shot ready for us. And now I'm going to steam the milk. Okay, so as I say, I'm just going to submerge the tip and put the steam on to full. You're listening for that tick 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 sound. Can you hear it? Get some air in the coffee. And the level of the milk's just coming up slightly. I think that's enough air now, so I'm just going to start heating the milk, keep it swirling. And we're looking for 65 degrees. There we are. So I'm going to turn off the steam now. Always good practice to wipe your wand. You don't want that milk burning onto the wand. Purge it. We're ready to go next time. Swirl your espresso shot, just to mix the crema with the coffee. And you can see, I mean, if there are any big air bubbles, there's one or two there. Just a couple of sharp taps on the counter should take them out. Swirl the coffee, swirl the milk, just to combine it. And do you remember I might have said, I think, we're looking for that sort of wet paint look. The look of sort of smooth, creamy emulsion. And that's what we've got there ready for latte pouring. When you're ready to pour, as I say, swirl your shot. And we're looking to break the surface of the coffee if we want to produce any latte art. I'll just do something fairly simple. Break the surface, combine the milk and the coffee like that. And when you're ready, just bring the jug close. I'll just do maybe a simple heart here. Pour it through like that. And that is some very simple latte art, like just to do a heart for you guys. Latte art comes in many forms. You've got actual sort of latte artists who will use toothpicks and different ingredients to create incredible patterns in your coffee. There are some great tutorials on YouTube as well. Coffee fusion is worth a look, for example. But that's basically the process. Now we've got a coffee that, forgive us guys, we're going to take away and thoroughly enjoy. So we hope you enjoyed this video. Stay safe, look after each other, look after yourselves, and we can't wait to see you back soon. Thanks all.